Hello everyone, this is Jody Grinwald and welcome to another episode of the Today's the Day Changemakers Podcast. This week I launched 2 episodes in 1 week under our very special Inspire series, and my first guest is the incredible Scott Chesney. He is a world-renowned motivational speaker and life coach who has presented to over 1.5 million people in 40 countries. He is known as the Commander in Change. As soon as I started interviewing Scott, I knew immediately why he is such a successful life coach, as he exudes positivity and such a special perspective on life. Scott has navigated paralysis for 35 years, and although we do talk about his experience in our interview, I encourage listeners to see his incredible documentary movie titled Ride the Wave. Scott is filled with hope and spreads it everywhere he goes. So many special nuggets are in this episode. Visit scottchesney.com to learn more about Scott and follow him on all social media. Scott joins me in the next episode as a special guest co-host, and together we interview Michael Reuter, leadership coach and former director of the Buccino Center for Leadership at Seton Hall University. Please like, subscribe, and share the Today's the Day Changemakers YouTube channel and download on all streaming sites. And don't forget to follow us on Today is the Day Live It. That is Today is the Day Live It on Facebook and Instagram. Have a fabulous week. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Today's the Day Changemakers, where I have the joy of interviewing the changemakers, the inspirers, the motivators, those who are just busting through the status quo and will not accept that the status quo is okay. And today I have a wonderful changemaker with me, Scott Chesney. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Jody. Thank you so much for having me. And what a wonderful program that I know is reaching so many people and so impactful. So thank you. It's a privilege and an honor to be with you today.
No, it's totally I feel that way about you being here. So thank you so much. And Scott has an amazing background. I'm going to read a little bit from his bio, and then we're going to get into a great conversation. Scott is a world-renowned motivational speaker and life coach who has presented to over 1.5 million people in 40 countries. Take that in. That's amazing. Known as the Commander in Change by his clients, Scott is navigator of life with paralysis for nearly 35 years after awakening to paralysis at the age of 15 from a sudden spinal stroke. Scott has amassed a resume of transformational experiences, powerful insights, and inspiring stories. Scott also has incited and has been coveted and applauded by the United Nations, the Pentagon, the FBI, Fortune 500 corporations, sports teams, hospitals, rehabs, K-12 schools, and so much more. And he's also the ambassador of the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation. And lastly, I do want to mention too that in April of 2020, a documentary about Scott's life, who I've been honored to watch this documentary. It's incredible. It's entitled Ride the Wave. It was released worldwide. And Scott, I want to talk about that a little later on too. That was an incredible movie. And I recommend that everybody take some time out of their schedule to watch this movie. And we'll talk more about that in a few minutes. So again, welcome.
Thank you. Isn't it amazing what you can write about yourself? I mean, it's amazing what we can put down on paper, and other people like yourself read it. I'm touched. I'm inspired.
I'm inspired. Like I'm reading. You know, one of the things I'm terrible at is scripts. I don't like scripts. I love having that. You know, everybody knows that this is always a natural conversation, and so. But when I see a bio that has such impact and has such impact, I prefer to read from it because I feel that I don't want to miss a beat. You work hard to get all of those accolades on a piece of paper, and that should be shared. So total kudos to you for your story. I have the inside track because I got to see your movie. so I'm so excited about that. But for those who may not have heard of Scott Chesney, they need to know of Scott Chesney. And so please tell them who you are and how you describe yourself without what's on the paper.
Well, I would probably say I'm one of the most real individuals as possible. And I had an audience member ask me, I think it was a couple years ago, basically, what one word would you want to best describe who you are? And the word real appeared. And I'm trying to make that as strong as possible each and every day, because it allows me to reach more people. The more real that I am, the more real people that I'll meet, and the more experiences that I've had. But Jody, I've taken this journey for over 50 years now, around the world. And one was filled with, part of my life was filled with movement up until the age of 15. And in which I was an athlete. I was a pretty good student and just trying to live my life carefree and just doing it whatever I could as a teenager at the time. And then it was December 28th, 1985, is that I awoke one morning after a high school basketball game and I couldn't feel my left toe. And then 48 hours later, that numbness went up one leg, went up a second leg, and left me paralyzed, unable to move and feel normally from about my belly button down to my toes. There was no accident, no injury, no trauma, because a lot of times when you think of paralysis, you think of some type of traumatic experience, some type of accident, some type of injury. No, there are illnesses that create that too. And we would find out almost months later, after exploratory surgery, different hospitals that I was in, is that I was born with a malformation of blood vessels. And the best way to describe it, it was almost like a sleeping volcano. I could have gone my whole life on anything happening. Could have happened at birth. It could have happened never. It could have happened at age 50. But at age 15, it was my time. So those blood vessels that were not the right shape and size kind of burst and bled and almost created like a stroke in the spinal cord. They call it an AVM, an arterial venous malformation. And at the time, I was one of 12 cases ever, told as many people are. And one of the things that my mission is all about is trying to go back to doctors and say, listen, I get it, statistics and so forth, and letting people know where they stand with what's happened to them. I understand you have a responsibility, but never take away that thing called hope. And I remember back then, see my dogs up there, they agree, I apologize. Anytime I say something good, they bark or they do something.
They're applauding you.
They're applauding me. See, in this virtual world, I need an audience, and I get that. But what was amazing is that it was something that just entered my life at the time that it should. And so there was no accident, no injury, no trauma. And it was something that they had seen at the time, 12 cases of before mine. I meant 11 cases before mine. I was the 12th case. And out of the 11 cases before mine, Jody, is that 7 of those malformations occurred in the brain and went down. Mine occurred in the spinal cord and kind of went down. Found out that those 7 people never lived before. So what I was sharing before, and I know I didn't get to, is that many doctors are saying, you will never walk again. You will never be able to move again. And so again, part of my mission is trying to get them to never take away hope. Show statistics, show that the majority, and that's the truth, do not regain movement, but never. That's not your job. I want to take away hope from myself. You want to take away hope from yourself? You can do that, but it's no one's job to take that away. So being told I would never be able to walk again, and then years later being told I would never be able to father my own children, there was a lot of permanence that was scarred in my head, which I had to do a lot of retreating, a lot of rewinding, a lot of reinterpreting what was shared, and realizing that, okay, those are their words, not my words. And while there still is that part of me that tries every day to walk again. And I'm on 2 paths right now. One is doing everything that I possibly can, Jody, to get up and out of this wheelchair again. It's been almost a little over 35 years now. Mm-hmm. So I want to walk again. I want to move again. And I don't want to miss anything in this thing called life, even by means of a wheelchair. So I'm doing whatever I can to improve the quality of my life, and professionally, personally. And if it just happens that I got to live the rest of my life in this wheelchair, I'm just going to have to be the happiest guy ever to live life from my wheelchair. But I'm one of those people, I know we're going to talk about this, is that they're like, just keep telling me I can't do something, just telling me I can't be something, is that like, I don't get down about that. There was a time in a day where I was just like, wow, you feel that way? Or, wow, this is what people think. Now it's almost like I take it as fuel, like something is holding me back from what I want. You're just motivating me. So again, being told I'd never be able to father my own children, which is even more important to me than walking, that set me on like one of my journeys around the world, in which I went from a 2% chance to a 55% chance of fathering my own children. And the only thing I can attribute that to is this power of belief, because you put the power of belief behind anything, Jody, is that anything is possible. So that's where I am. I've owned my own business now, in which I'm a motivational speaker and life coach for over 20 years now. I'm one of those people who's very thankful to not only connect with this purpose like early on in life, but also my passion as well. and turn it into a career, which I'm extremely thankful for. But just this thing called life has just been wonderful. Like everyone else, it's not a straight line to say, wow, you've hit nirvana or anything like that. It's the biggest zigzag in the world, but it's my life. I own it. The peaks and the valleys has all led me up to you, Jody, doing what I love most. So there's a part of me that says, why would I want to change anything? So here we are.
Wow. Wow. It's just incredible. There's so much there just in that part that I
Did I answer the question or did I not? I don't know.
There's so much there that I want to unpack because you're just such a special individual and special person. And I'm so grateful that we've had the opportunity to meet. And by the way, the funny thing is my middle name is Hope. And so,
the acronym for that is Hold On, Possibilities Exist.
Really? I didn't know that.
Hold on. Wow. I thought Jody knew everything. So when you are working with Jody, for all those out there, when you listen to her, when you're interviewed by her, or anytime Jody comes into your life, knowing her middle name is Hope, just connect with that energy that hold on, possibilities exist, because that's what Jody's energy is all about. So here we are again.
Scott, that was so sweet. Thank you so much. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. And you see, that is the fire that you have. That is it. It's an incredible, amazing energy that you found through this process. And I guess, one of the things, and I want to go through that process, but first I want to touch on something really important, because not everybody has that inside of themselves, right? Some of us have it. Some of us are born with that hope, right? And that acronym, and they can push through as you have, and you've turned a situation that you could have gone in either direction with, right? You could have decided, I'm throwing my hands up, or you said, no, this is a challenge. And so for those who, whether they're in a similar situation to yours, or those who are just, some days are worse than others, and especially now during this pandemic, what advice or hope can you share with them when they're not feeling like they have that internal energy?
Right. Well, I need to begin, and we can agree to disagree on this. I do believe that hope is within us all. And I believe it's there when we're born until the day we die. I am not here to judge anyone. It's just one of my missions on life is to help people access that hope, because sometimes it's very elusive, but it is there within all of us. And for those people who pass on or maybe can't handle something, who am I to judge? I will never, physically never walk in anyone's shoes or wheel in someone's chair, but I understand what can happen when we're connected with oneself, but I can also understand what happens when we're disconnected from oneself. So we can go beyond our wildest dreams and what we can create in our lives. And we can hit the lowest of lows and feel like we're disconnected from ourselves and other people. And that's when we can do some terrible things to ourselves and other people. And I know that there are people in between who are wavering there. And during these challenging times, I think the best thing that we can do is, and it's self-reflection. And the more that we can be in the moment with our feelings, our thoughts, and our actions, I think that helps us. But what I'm finding out too many people are either dwelling on the past, in which we have no control over, we can't change. We can make peace with it, though, by reflecting, reinterpreting, understanding how all the choices and events and experiences has kind of led us up to this moment. Doesn't take away from the energy. It doesn't take away from the loss necessarily, but it just kind of helps us to unload that imaginary backpack in which so many people, and I was one of them, carry around this backpack in which it's weighing them down, and it's the past. And you keep making the same choices, you keep tapping into the same energy, you keep having the same experiences, your past will become your future. And so I love to make peace with the past and reinterpreting it. And I'm in that place, and I can look you right now. I'm the furthest thing from being perfect, but I can tell you is that every single experience, every single choice and event, I own. I absolutely own. Do I wonder what in the world were you thinking, Scott? And how zigzag a way to get what you want? Absolutely. But I know that that's my path. I know that that's been my journey. So it's about the past and it's about the future. So we dwell on the past. So if you're one of those people out there that's just like, almost like weighted down by something, that's usually the past. is that when we get to the anxiety and the anticipation and the nervousness, that's the future. And while the future is important, is that we have no control over that as well. So I'm all about planning. I'm all about strategizing. But if I'm constantly there in the future and like kind of getting all caught up and filled with anxiety and being too anxious, I'm in the future. Dwelling is in the past. So you might say, well, what is there then? It's this moment. And so what I'm finding to help cope and to not only survive challenging moments, but to thrive in the face of them is to be with myself in the moment, to feel the feelings. And especially during this pandemic, it's like, you know what? Yeah, you get angry, you get upset, you get frustrated, you have all those. If you didn't, you're lying to yourself. Mm-hmm. And these are moments. So Jody, we have moments in which, you know what, we're filled with happiness and joy and excitement, but they don't last. And then we're filled with those moments of sadness and anger. Those are moments. So I always say to people, I don't have bad days anymore. Jody, I don't have bad days anymore. What I have are challenging moments. But because of this thing called gratitude, because of this thing called life, I believe if I'm supposed to be in another place right now, I wouldn't be alive. So this is where on a consistent basis, whether it be that quadriplegic who has no use of his arms or his legs, and may even be on like a ventilator for a period of time, is that I know that that person with that heart beating thing still going on has a place and a purpose. What that is, I have no idea. That's for part of your journey. That's your own individual journey of self-discovery. And so that's why I feel like no matter what the situation is, no matter what challenges are, no matter what your past says, is that the more that you're in the moment, you have a moment to feel your feelings. You have a moment to change. You have a moment to say, I know what that direction's all about and where that's leading me, how it's making me feel. And this is very simple, which has helped me out considerably and it's helped a lot of my clients. I said, you don't like that direction? In which people have said, well, Scott, I don't know what I want in life. I don't know what I want to do.
Right.
But you know what you do know? What you don't want anymore. You know how you don't want to feel. So I just tell people, you know, start to go in the opposite direction. Even if you don't know exactly what that is, you end up distancing yourself from what it is that you no longer want to feel. So by doing that, you are stepping out of your comfort zone, which is usually lying where we don't want to be because it's serving you in a way. Everything serves us. Everything's to be learned by, is that let's start going in that opposite direction. So it's not easy. And I will tell you, Jody, and tell everyone who's listening right now, is that a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, we're going to be looking back at this pandemic. And when challenges arise, and we're going to say to ourselves, wow, wait a minute, we got through that pandemic of 2020, 2021. And wow, I learned a lot about myself. And I learned about it. It wasn't easy. It wasn't always easy. But wow, if that's possible, anything is possible. So I put it for myself. I put this pandemic in that category along with my paralysis in terms of major adversity that I've had to overcome. I put it in going skydiving, in terms of traveling by myself, all these things in which in the moment when we all are human from time to time and like, I don't think I can do this. I don't think I can get this done. That's when you rewind the tape of your life and you remind yourselves of times where you've experienced adversity and got through it, because that will give you the energy to say, wow, again, if that's possible, anything is possible. And at least to move forward out of where you are right now. And that usually will lead to you making some changes and busting out of that comfort zone, which this pandemic, a lot of people aren't talking about this, Jody, is creating significant comfort zones. You want to talk about confinement? I mean, and I know a lot of it has to do with like, that will help you build. I mean, people are going to have a difficult time, challenging times when this is all said and done, whenever that all clear sign goes out, because of what we've built here in somewhat of an isolating circumstance. And that's where the real work is going to need to be done. But again, whatever's going on in our life, we have not only the ability to survive it, but to thrive in the face of it.
You went exactly in the direction that I was hoping for you to go in, because I hear, when I started that question to you, it's because I hear from people, I don't have that like you do, like I don't have that in me. They'll say, that you keep going no matter what hits you, and I said, no, you do. No, I don't. And so you just, it's there. You help people reconnect to that. I try to do the same thing, helping people reconnect to that. But a couple of things about living in the moment. We do not, and I have this saying, today is the day. You cannot go back to yesterday, and you do not yet own tomorrow. I say it at the end of every podcast.
Love it.
And so it is about living in the moment. But so much of us we're worried about the future, and we're carrying, and I like, the metaphor at the backpack, because it's very true, the backpack on our back of everything that we have in there. But also, I just want to reiterate, because this is so important for listeners to hear. Think about all that you've already been through in your life. If you somehow are listening to this, which means you came out somehow on the other side, you are listening, you're available, you can connect to that, what you can do. And sometimes we do forget. And that's
resilience. Jody, that's and that word is being used so often, is that every single person who's gone through this pandemic, no matter where you think you are, what you're feeling, you're still here. That's resilience. So if you feel like, no, that person's resilient or that person's strong, no. And just to clarify this, if you were to have asked me, let's say 2 months before I became paralyzed, do you think I would be able to handle that? Excuse my language, but hell no. Hell no. Nobody would say, yeah, bring it on. Bring it on. But I absolutely believe whatever your circumstances are, maybe you've lost a job, maybe a relationship has ended, maybe you've lost a loved one. Again, it doesn't take away from the loss. It doesn't take away from the emotions, just like that 15-year-old kid. But looking back on it like it was tough. It was a struggle. And every day is based on things that I need to do to care for myself is paralysis. But you know what? The end game or the end game for each day is too big. It's too awesome. It's too much to say, like anything's going to hold me back. So it's almost like all these things that are challenging my life. Yep. Take into consideration, but wow, look at all the amazing things in my life. And I think if people really came back to the drawing board, and again, we're coming back to this thing called gratitude. I assure you that every single person on the face of this earth, not just the glaring things in which we could say, wow, I'm grateful for that, but the little tiny things that just maybe someone in this world doesn't have right now, we absolutely could flood our lives with gratitude. And right away, which is in the moment when we do that, is bring ourselves to a greater vibrancy, a greater energy inside of us that's going to help us to kind of like navigate this thing called life a little bit better.
Yeah, one word comes to me when we talk about this: perspective, right?
Yep.
Because you can look at your paralysis in one way and or another, and you even said, you traveled the world. You went from a 2% chance, I think you said, to a 55% chance, with children, and you said, no, I'm not going to accept 2%. That's just not going to be. It's not what I'm going to accept. And so your perspective was, I'll use your words, hell no, that this is not it. So, I do want to talk a little bit about how you did travel around the world, because you brought that up. And I think that's that. And I know that's, in the movie a little bit too. And we get to see some great photos and things that you share in there. But can you share a little bit about that and some of the places you traveled and what you learned along the way?
Absolutely. So, and we were talking about this a little bit before the show, the importance of getting to know oneself and understanding what's going on with oneself. So a very, very dear friend of mine, who's a mentor to me, like a second father to me, someone who's like very like influential person in this world, kind of behind the scenes, doesn't even like to be out in public, is that he has gotten to know himself so well that he knows other people. And I follow his lead. He's a very wealthy individual. He's a very philanthropic individual. He's the deepest person I've ever met. So what was interesting is that probably in my 20s, when I was just like kind of getting going and working and doing different things, and really had put like, even though paralysis was a part of my life, really hadn't dealt with it yet. And just trying to kind of like move forward and get the jobs, make the money, have the relationships, all these things. it just felt like something was missing. One of those things too is that I had lost my father in 1994. And it was like, at that time, it was almost like a blip on the radar. It really didn't affect me too much. So to this day, I know, Jody, is that, so I was living down in Miami, Florida, and this gentleman was traveling and coming down to Miami and invited me to dinner. And he just looked at me and he said, Scott, how would you like to travel around the world? All expenses paid, leave whenever you want, come back whenever you want. Maybe study alternative complementary forms of medicine that can help your situation. But then again, which he always has an eye on, is helping other people with their lives. And the way he put it, it was just, there was a resounding, yes, this is what I got to do. But I know, and I haven't talked to him about it, and I never will, because I always say the mind thinks, the heart knows. When there's a knowingness, there's no need to prove, there's no need to, it just, that's my knowingness. It might be different than someone else's knowingness, but it's my knowingness. Is that I know one of his other agendas was to say, you know what, Scott, I know you didn't really grieve over the passing of your father. I really know that you didn't grieve over the loss of your legs when you were 15. I think you need to kind of get away. And I think these things are going to happen as well, and which they absolutely did. Because so this is what I love to share with those. So here I am on my trip, all expenses paid. I'm in Athens, Greece, probably the most inaccessible country in the world. At the time, it's become much better over the years. And like, I don't want to be here anymore. Jay, I don't want to be here anymore. And like, I was in my hotel room for 4 or 5 days. I thought about taking my life. It was more just a fleeting thought. It wasn't like, okay, I got to get a gun or I got to hang my, it wasn't anything that led to that. It was just like, I don't want to be here anymore. And what I did in that isolation, and understand, folks, is that I'm not saying that everyone out there has to take a trip around the world and isolate themselves to kind of reawaken themselves and begin their journey of self-discovery in an awareness way. This is my path. Again, zigzagging, doing whatever. You could do this right now in your own home. I mean, there's never a wrong time to begin to go within, as I say. Is that so? Here I am, and obviously I'm just flooded with what that 15-year-old kid went through, and every type of emotion and feeling you would expect someone like that, who was like a budding basketball and football and baseball star in high school. I mean, movement was taken away from him. So I grieved over what that 15-year-old lost. I also allowed myself to like grieve over the loss of my father, and it was amazing. And again, it's been a process now because I wanted to be that way. So it wasn't like all this was just gone and I like absolutely made peace with it. No. And I know a lot of people get frustrated by this, Jody, is that they talk about that onion and you peel it like, I thought I did this work, and they realize there's another level. And I don't look at it like, oh, I got to do more work. I'm like, what's next? You're telling me I can feel even better. You're telling me there's even more peace here. So I don't care if this onion lasts forever, but it is a journey, and I expect it to be a journey for the rest of my life. But I feel so much lighter now. So while all those other things, studying, I've studied over 70 complementary alternative forms of medicine. For example, like China is that acupuncture. Yes, it's available here in the United States and other places around the world, but that's where it began. So I went back to the very roots. Aboriginal healing in Australia, psychic surgery in the Philippines. And it was the psychic surgery in the Philippines, Jody, that really helped me tap into the power of belief, because I found that this psychic surgeon, and it was like whatever it was, a trickery of the hands and everything, is that people who would travel for days in the Philippines with significant illnesses, sometimes like life-threatening illnesses, just put that power of belief, like, I'm going to see this gentleman who heals people. I'm going to be healed. So it's almost like, I believe, on their way to seeing him, they were already healing themselves. And while that energy connected with his, is that I saw people regain their sight who could never see before. And so you might say, well, Scott, then why aren't you walking? And so there was a lot of skepticism too. So there was this game of wanting to get in my heart, wanting to have this power of belief, but there was like, nah, this can't take place. This isn't going to happen. It wasn't until I was in India, so which was amazing, is that I decided, and I connected, and it was amazing to know, is that as much as I was in the moment, to realize the people and experiences around me, it was almost like putting a puzzle together. And it really helped me. So I met this gentleman who told me that he works at this Ayurveda center in India. Ayurveda, it's like a 5,000-year-old practice. They call it the science of life. It's the #1 form of healing in India. And so it just intrigued me. He's like, we'd love to get you to the center. So I was like, well, let me see if I could find time on my itinerary. And whether it be dreams or whether it be, everything kept saying India, Ayurveda. So I finally carved out the time. Now, this ended up being like my second trip around the world, which was with my wonderful wife. I know I could spend all days talking about this, in which we carved out that time. 30 days in an Ayurvedic hospital, not a spa. I didn't want to have a spa treatment because I knew I wouldn't take it that serious. I needed to have like the hospital total focus on my healing there. So you ready for this, Jody? Is that I could not read and write. I could only read and write for 1 hour a day. I could not exercise for 30 days. I could not go outside for 30 days. I could not watch TV for 30 days. I could only eat breakfast in the morning and then like a small little meal in the afternoon. I couldn't shave. I couldn't cut my nails. So you might say, well, what is this all about? So in Ayurveda, they like to give you all these restrictions so that your body can just focus on healing. So for example, watching television, we're totally stimulated. Exercising, you're stimulating the body. Reading and writing, even though they allowed a little bit, we're stimulating our minds. Even when we're eating, our bodies are working. So they want to take you back to your natural state of stillness and silence. So this coupled with Ayurvedic massages in which these oils and everything are rubbed into you is that something happened. So I embarked upon it and my wife was going nuts because I added something which they were totally cool with. I spent 13 days in silence. I didn't talk for 13 days. Now, you and many of the people who are watching this right now are probably like, I bet you couldn't go 13 seconds in silence. I went 13 days in silence. And after the first 45 minutes, like my mind felt like it was going to explode because it was pushing the panic button. And I knew that my mind just wants to control my life. And it got to a point of letting go. And I would write different things and notes for my wife to give to the doctors to make and I watched my body. So I'm a guy since the age of 10 who has worked out religiously each and every day. I watched like my body get thinner and atrophy. My legs were already atrophied, but I watched all this take place and I grew a beard for the first time. Jody, no joke, is that on the 30th day,
Right.
30th day of this treatment, the last day of this treatment, or wait a minute, I'm sorry, it was the 29th day of this treatment, is that one morning, woke up and I called over to my wife, Pat, and I said, who's a physical therapist? I said, watch. And I started moving my left toe where this all started on command, up, down, up, down. Now my body spasms from time, like when your eye twitches, my leg does that. But my wife verified that's not a spasm because she's telling me to hold it up and then put my toe down. And I'm doing this. I'm doing this for like a couple minutes. And all of a sudden we're both like, oh my God. So we call the doctors in and everything, and I'm doing it for them. And then all of a sudden it stops. And they're all like, Mr. Scott. My wife's Indian, so I try to do Indian accents all the time. Mr. Scott. And I was just like, guys, I can't do this anymore. And all of a sudden, like I closed my eyes and all of a sudden a smile overcame my face. And I didn't share it with them at the time, but I ended up sharing it with my wife when they left. I said, honey, what was my goal in coming here? And she's like, you want to improve the chances of having your own children and also walk. And I was like, yeah. But what was that first one again? And she's like, improve your own chance. So obviously those weren't like results that I could see right away, but that I, to this day, attribute. And there's still a part of me, Jody, and I know I keep going off on tangents on this, is that I believe that if I were to go to India and not put a restriction on it and just went back into that focus, I absolutely believe that I can regain the use of my legs. So you might say, well, why don't you then? Is that my role as a father, my role as a husband, my role as a provider and a businessman, those far outweigh my ability to walk right now. But I still know that power of belief increased my chances to have my own children.
Such an incredible story. I mean, really just amazing. And I literally felt like I was on that ride with you. Like, just unbelievable what you decided and how you said, you know what, this is what I need to do for myself. And you took the time to try to make it happen. And it just incredible. So where throughout this process, I'm sorry, go ahead, say what you were going to say.
I just wanted to say, and this holds true for a lot of people, is that we're in a world that it's all about movement. It's all about talking. There's like a busyness. And what I found out, this might not work for everyone. They might be I'm always about embracing life's polar opposite. So if you say, what's the opposite of movement? Stillness. What's the opposite of sound and talking? Silence. Stillness and silence were so foreign to me. But I realize now to keep me in the moment, whether it be meditation, whether it be doing that Ayurvedic to the extreme situation, I realize that that's what's needed, because I am a guy who, even though I'm paralyzed, I'm all about movement. I'm getting on airplanes, I'm doing different things. And obviously, because I'm talking too much during this interview, I got diarrhea of the mouth. And so I need to balance that with stillness and silence. So for anyone that's out there, you might be in a place where I'm really good at the stillness and silence. You know, you got to bring more movement into your life. It could be exercise, it could be something, but like, how would we know nighttime if we didn't know daytime? How would we know pleasure if we didn't know pain? How would we know success if we didn't know failure? Now, I'm not telling you to go look for failure. It will find you, but understanding that these are the balances of life. And rather than resisting one, you know, let me embrace it and see what it has to teach me.
Right. And there's a lesson in everything that we do, every single thing. And those failures are really just lessons. That's all they are. It's learning from them. That's the key, you know, not doing the same
feelings first, but then say, you know what, knowing that it happened, can't change it. It's like a test. Make it as simple as possible. A test in school. You didn't do well on the test. Why didn't you do well? There's no one that comes out of there want to say, I'm clueless. I was totally prepared. Now, did you get extra help? Did you study harder? Did you cram the night before? That's the thing, you know what you have to do better, but did you do it? I mean, that's the whole thing. And that's the easiest way that I can explain that it's feedback. It's absolutely feedback for you.
Absolutely. And reaching out. If you're struggling, there's people that can help. You know, there's always somebody out there. I know a lot of people don't feel that way, but there truly, truly is. I mean, as coaches, we know there's always coaches out there. There's always mentors out there, and definitely don't, you know, when you're feeling alone, you don't have to, you know, and I think it's good for people to hear that. Where throughout the process did you decide I'm going to be a coach? Because you had such great experiences along the way. I'm so glad, you know, personal opinion, of course, that journey took you to being able to share these amazing stories and experiences and helping people to find their hope.
It's a great question. So during our travels too, I did a lot of speaking. I mean, that was one thing because I had the time and I wanted to. So we lined up different speaking engagements, helping people to navigate their lives, helping people with accessibility in different countries, whatever it may be. It created so many speaking engagements as well. And one was in Australia. So normally when I get done with a presentation is that I have a lineup, I do a Q&A, but then even after that, I have a lineup of people who want to share something personal. It could be a question that they have that they just want to ask personally, or to share an experience that they didn't feel like sharing with the whole group. There's usually one person that's at the end who wants a little bit more time with you than everyone else. But this person wasn't necessarily in line. They were kind of like hovering in the back and just watching this all play out. So this woman came up to me and she said, Scott, that was amazing. And I was like, I'm so glad you enjoyed the presentation. She goes, the presentation was fantastic, but what you were just doing for the last 45 minutes, I was like, oh, thank you. I was like, I just love talking to my audience members, and a lot of them have personal experiences or questions they want to share. And she's like, you are a life coach. Now, I want to say this was back in 2000. I had never heard that term before. No joke. Never heard the term before. And I was like, life coach? I kind of like that. I was like, tell me like about a life coach. So she was describing this to me and I looked at her and I was like, and people get paid for this? I was like, you gotta be kidding me. And she's like, no. And I was like, wow. So it was one of the trainings that I did in the very beginning when I got back. And I thought it would be a perfect compliment to my speaking business. And I would say 90 to 95% of my clients have been in my audience at some time or another. So whether it be in person, if they live within a certain mile radius and there's no pandemic, or they're like away somewhere, or they're miles and miles away in another country, is that we do it virtual. But I love it. So I love speakers who add coaching to their professions, but I also love coaches who add speaking. I think there's a great exchange of the both, and it just allows me to like kind of further the message and help people with their own blueprints in life.
It's so funny. We had similar experiences because I didn't know what a life coach was either. I actually had, when I was working for the Lung Association, I had an event and I needed a speaker to come in and speak to this group. And she came in and I knew she was, I knew what she did, like motivation and all of that. But then when she got up on the stage, I watched her take people on a journey from crying to laughing, and people left inspired. And I had this aha moment where everything went, actually, I couldn't hear anything, just her. It was like the rest of the world went away. And I was like, what is that? And I want to do that. I want to help people do what I just saw happen here in this crowd.
So this is a perfect example. You chose to be in that moment. And because you chose to be in that moment, all of a sudden the teachers, the experiences that you, and maybe everyone else, but I'm only speaking to you now, that was what you needed to have. That was your aha moment. That was a transformational moment. And I'm just letting know everyone out there, the more you're in the moment, it could be something that pops up on your computer screen, something that comes on the TV. It could be like a phone call from someone you haven't heard before, a book that's suggested. I was like, really look out for these signs, because they are meant to guide you and help you to transform your life, whether it be personally and or professionally.
Absolutely. And I say this, I feel like I say this almost on every podcast too. If we stop living on cruise control, where we're just kind of, we know we have to get done, we've got goals, we've got kids, we've got, it's being in the moment, and it's feeling it and not questioning it, right? Because we always say, oh yeah, I don't have time for that. Oh yeah, that sounds great, but I don't know how to do that. Find people who do, who can help you. Because I then went up to that person and said, I don't know where to go from here, but I want to be just like you. And I was, 40 years old at the time. So
everyone who's listened to this, because that's phenomenal, is that a lot of people was like, well, I don't know if I could be that vulnerable. Is that, folks, vulnerability is a beautiful trait. That means you're taking the mask off. That means you're taking all these barriers down and saying to another human being or human beings is that I need help. Like, I don't have this thing and you do. And while I'm going to customize it and personalize it, is that, I can learn something from you. So I want to challenge everyone out there, is that, and it could be family, friends, or it could be other people, those people who just like you're just drawn to, like they're like magnets. They're like, wow, that person looks happy, or wow, that person looks productive or successful. Is that find a way to connect with them, invite them to coffee, invite them to a virtual whatever, send them some food, just say, listen, I'd like a little bit of time with you, and butter them up. I can't tell you how many times I get phone calls from people and say, hey, Scott, I want to be a speaker and everything. And like, you're phenomenal. Okay. Yeah, I'd be more than happy to teach you and share as much as I can with you, knowing full well that you're going to customize it and personalize it and make a difference in this world. So I love the vulnerability that you showed there, Jody. And it shows your own personal growth and self-reflection that you've done.
Thank you so much. There's two big words for me, vulnerability and judgment. And if we could allow ourselves, we would allow ourselves, I should say, to be more vulnerable and more connected to each other if we weren't afraid of being judged.
Yep.
I'm on this mission through this podcast to talk about those two topics every chance I get, because that's the key. You know what I'm saying? You were actually in a vulnerable situation, and you decided that, you know what, I'm going to find the other side of this, and I'm going to help people and help them to be able to feel comfortable being vulnerable with me, so that you can help them grow. Yep. And that's, that's just a beautiful thing. And that's why I always want people to know that there are people out there that care and that are here to help and support and teach them. But definitely go up to those people. Mentorship, I talk about that all the time too. So important. And don't forget, people like to hear that you like what they're doing, or you like that what you said connected to them. It doesn't hurt at all. But it does come also, I have to say, with a lot of responsibility, Scott, right? I mean, when you have that line, of people waiting to talk to you, and it's a long day. I'm sure that you just want to be able to give, but we also have to do our own self-care. And I know you and I talked a little bit about that too. So I'd like to go into that a little bit more, and the importance of self-care when you are giving so much.
Yeah. It's really at the foundation of self-discovery for me, is realizing that, I have to care for myself first. And one of the best examples I use is when you go on an airplane and the oxygen. Everyone's been on a plane before, or hopefully they have, or will be on a plane. But trust me, if you haven't, this is what's done, is that the flight attendant goes over and it says, listen, do not, if the oxygen comes down, you need oxygen on a plane, do not give it to that kind old man sitting next to you first. Do not give it to that little child who's sitting on the other side of you first. Give it to yourself first, so you have the energy and the wherewithal to give it to other people. That's so important. Now, and we were talking about this before the show as well, folks, doing for yourself at the exclusion of other people, that's selfishness. That's not what Jody talks about. That's not what I'm talking about. We're talking about doing for yourself so that you can do even more for other people. Doing for yourself so you can understand in a less judgmental way what's going on with other people. And if I still have any self-doubters, because when I see someone who's thriving in their lives, just like we were talking about before, I want to learn from them. I want to study them. I want to do research on them. Unfortunately, Mother Teresa was one of those people who was no longer alive. But this can have everything to do with religion or nothing to do with religion. But I have yet, Jody, to find anyone in this world that says, you know what? Mother Teresa was a real jerk. I hate it. And no one's going to say that, or no one's going to have the audacity to say it. So again, it can have everything to do with religion or nothing to do. But I think we could all agree upon that she was a servant. She just served others to the utmost of her abilities. And so what's interesting about her, and doing research, I found out, and I don't know exactly what time in her life she decided to do this, but at some point in her life, which she would carry on a daily basis, is that a half an hour every single morning, is that she would carve out time in her schedule to, before the day started, to pray to God. She said, this is my time to talk to God. I think it was 1 hour by herself every single morning before her day started. Then she touched countless lives throughout the course of the day. Then on the other side of the day, before her head hit the pillow, she would spend an hour in silence, 1 hour by herself again before her head hit the pillow. She said, this is my time to listen to God. So I don't know exactly what she would do throughout the day based on her busyness and serving other people, but it was reassuring to know on either side of the day, she was filling her own cup. She was reconnecting with herself through God, who she believes in. And that, I absolutely believe, gave her an abundance of energy, almost like a reservoir that was never going to be empty of this. So if someone's thinking listen, this was a person who never thought of herself, constantly did for others. So here's a great example of this too, is that, you know what, those people who are stressed out in their lives, those people who are burned out, and not to judge them, how many of those people are constantly doing for other people? You might say, yeah, they're great. They're doing this for other people. I'd be very curious to see what they're doing for themselves, how they're caring for themselves, mind, body, and spirit. And usually there's some hiccups along the way because they're not taking care of themselves so well. And the last thing about this, Joey, just so I really want people to understand, and your journey of self-discovery can begin now. You can begin doing work on yourself now. So it's not an age thing. Obviously, I wish I was doing this at age 15, but I wasn't. It took me in my 20s to start doing this. But here's a profound example that I love to use for other people. So, and I'm just going to bring up Jody, even though Jody's in a great place right now. If I told Jody that we were going to have a party for her right now, and we were going to have all her family and friends, closest people at this party. It's not during a pandemic, so it's going to be in person. We're going to have all her favorite foods there. She's going to have a gift, all the gifts that she wanted. Again, all the people that she wanted. Question for everyone out there. Everyone might say, wow, that would be awesome if we did that for Jody, if we did that for myself, whoever that may be. Mm-hmm. Isn't there still a chance, though, that Jody doesn't feel happy? Jody's not in a place of appreciation. And folks, the answer is absolutely yes. Mm-hmm. And you might say, well, why is that? Folks, we have to be happy with ourselves. When we're in a good place with ourselves, then all the help, then all these external things can absolutely best support who we are. But if there is a disconnect from ourselves, and it helps to get help from other people, obviously, but when there's a disconnect from ourselves, all this stuff on the outside doesn't matter. It's insignificant. It actually becomes even more clutter. So this journey within, I did that journey outside of myself, and I went to the ends of the earth, and it just wasn't doing it for me. It wasn't until I went within, which was a very etheric word at the time. It was so out there. It's like, within, what are you talking about? But then all of a sudden, whether it be through meditation, which I still find very profound, whether it be through prayer, whether it be through taking some deep breaths, I have realized that, wow, what can happen when I go within to reconnect with myself. And it's powerful, and it's become like a daily habit for me.
Yes, and it's so true. And thank you for sharing that, because self-care is so important. And again, we're not talking about being selfish. We're talking about taking care of ourselves. It's very, very different. And the truth is that, I know a lot of people say, oh, well, you can't, unless you love yourself, you can't have all these things. It's a journey. Doesn't mean you're going to do it in a day or an hour. It does still mean you can enjoy other things while you're on that journey, but you will enjoy, the sky will be bluer and things will be different. And I can tell you this from experience, when you do connect with yourself and you take the time to live in the moment. And that I know for a fact for myself, after working 80-hour long weeks and not just living in that space of go, go, go. So I think it's important to slow down, to go fast sometimes. I have a couple of other questions, because I really want to go over a couple of things with you before we go. And so now, FBI, Fortune 500 companies, you're working with all of these incredible organizations. And so tell us a little bit about that, and a little bit about the types of clients you work with, because I really want people to know about that.
Yeah, again, I love all my audience members. So whether it be corporations, whether it be associations and college, universities, sports teams, or even K through 12 schools, I love all my audiences. And I think obviously every presentation I do is customized and personalized, is that I try to help people determine where they are in their lives and where they want to be. And so it's almost like creating like that blueprint and that bridge again between where they are and where they want to be. And whether it be that corporation that's looking to kind of understand the culture a little bit more and move to that place, or whether it be, again, all the way down to that K through 2 experience that kids are having, is that, just want to best support them to connect with themselves, to connect with their teams, connect with their colleagues, whatever it is, to really, and I think and especially on the corporate level, what they're finding is that there is so much work that when doing for yourself and taking care of yourself, that can help with regards to more energy at work, more focus, more productivity, less absenteeism. So they're realizing that this journey within that we're talking about is so important. But love my audiences. And again, while I do have specific targets that I go after, I will get phone calls, I'll get emails that are so far out like of what it is that I planned on doing. But as long as they hone in on the topics that I'm discussing, like if someone calls and says, well, we need someone to talk about financial planning, I know who to talk to about that. And I'm going to pass along their number. So as long as they're in my wheelhouse with regards to the topics that I discuss and so forth, I'm like, you know what, whoever it is, I can absolutely be of assistance. I don't have to know exactly everything that you do. I just have to know where the disconnect might be and where I can help you reconnect.
And how do people find you, Scott?
My website's the best. So it's www.scottchesney, SCOTTCHESNEY.com. Everything's on my website, my coaching, my speaking, the documentary, whatever it is that you want.
That's great. That's a great segue, because I want to talk about Ride the Wave, which was such a great, oh my gosh, I really so enjoyed it. So tell everybody just a little snippet about that, because I want them to go watch it.
Yes. So Ride the Wave, I want to say almost 5 years ago, was something that was brought to my attention by two gentlemen who discovered me doing adaptive surfing in the ocean. So adaptive surfing is doing everything on a wave except standing up on the board. Very popular. It's actually a Paralympic event for the first time this year coming up. And or maybe 2024, I might be wrong about that, but it is coming up because surfing is now an Olympic sport. So with the Paralympics, it has to have its combination. Anyway, these two gentlemen who are filmmakers kind of just like, hey, we love adaptive surfing. And one of my team members who came out of the ocean and took a break said, listen, you need to really Google Scott. and see what he's all about. So it went from adaptive surfing, which is still included in moving, to being so much bigger based on what my life's all about and what we've been doing for the past 50 years in my life. So they approached me, Jody, about doing a documentary about my life, something that was not even on my radar. And I said, I would love it, but under one condition. They said, anything. I said that it's done in a way that my presentations are done, my speaking presentations are done, in which people, I'm going to always share my story. People can travel vicariously through me, through my story, but I want them to constantly be plugging in their own lives and to say, you know what, while Scott, yes, he's got a different path and everything, I can relate, I can connect, I can be as real as he is. And so that's where I feel that it's so important that that the movie convey, and it did a great job. And while a lot of people out there here ride the wave, and they might be thinking it has to do with the ocean, and it does, there's a lot of it that has to do with the ocean. It really, in so many ways, is much bigger than that. It's basically the waves of life that we're all riding. And what I mean by that, and even if you hate the ocean or have never been in the ocean, you can understand an ocean wave has a peak and a valley. So, and what's interesting is that, like life, there's going to be peaks in our life, those moments where we feel like, you know, we never want these moments to end. But they do come to an end. And then we have other moments in life, and maybe for people during this pandemic, is that we're in that valley where we feel like we're constantly being hit by that wave and we're getting tossed and turned. But we know those moments come to an end as well. And so one of the main things that I love about the ocean, but I love about life, no matter whether you're on a peak or valley, is if you look back out there in the ocean, there's another wave forming, unlike any other wave before. And now through your experiences of riding the wave, is that, wow, you have an even broader perspective on maybe, just maybe, navigating that next wave or the following wave or the wave after that a little bit better. So I'm just so thankful that this documentary has connected a lot of people. And we decided, the filmmakers and myself decided to launch it last year in April, where we were going to film festivals, going to a lot of places with it. But we kind of were on a Zoom call like this, smiling, and we kind of all had the same aha moment to say, there may not be a better time in our lifetimes than right now to release the film based on what the world needs. So we ended up through Vimeo releasing the film, and it's brought a lot of hope, a lot of resilience, a lot of reflection, family, love, you name it. This movie definitely captures it all. And I think it really allows people to go within and connect with their own selves as well.
Well, you're an extremely special human being, because I know that, you know, just to share your story. And when I watched it, I thought about it's riding the wave of life. You know, as I watched it, I understand there was ocean in there, but that's exactly how. And I was on the wave with you. I think everybody's cheering you on as you, you know, and themselves on in that movie in some way. And so and you said it's on your website that people can find it.
Yeah, it's on the website. And the only thing I will say about the film, and you understand this now, is that it did not go in the direction that most people would imagine, which I loved as well, because we do not know exactly where we're going to go in life. And while we could have the best laid plans set forward to ourselves, there might be something different that I have to believe is even a bigger and grander plan that's waiting for us. And this movie, my life, is definitely an example of that.
It is. And like you say, we don't know, you know, what why the things happen to us, but you know, I think we sometimes learn.
Yeah.
You know, I know one thing just in meeting you and knowing you for a short time is that your journey here is to teach, and to teach people empathy, compassion, connecting to themselves. I mean, I could go on and on, because you're just that type of person. And I think everybody who meets you, it feels as lucky as I do to have met you as well. And so I'm interested to hear what your answer is going to be to my last question that I ask everybody. If you knew then what you know now, what would that be?
Wow, if I knew then what I know now, to go within, and whether it be through meditation. Like I hear my kids who are in high school, they have like meditation classes now. And I was like, oh, meditation. Like when you talked to me back when I was in school, you asked me about meditation. I picture this person in an orange jumpsuit sitting on like the highest mountain in India and going home. I didn't want anything to do with that. But knowing what I know now in terms of this journey going within meditation and just this whole self-awareness, And that's why, I mean, I love it. I actually teach a class at Seton University called Your Journey of Self-Discovery. It's not a class that's ever been taught anything remote, but to get people to look within themselves and do all that. Yeah. So definitely looking within.
That's a great one. And so it's called Your Journey to Self-Discovery is the class?
Your journey of self-discovery. So it's through the business leadership class. So I have 30 freshman students during the winter spring semester, and we have 6 sessions in an hour and a half, and it's amazing. And we've gotten them skydiving, which I've done as well. And you just see these people who had like so much going for them before they even took my class, but then just a little extra swagger and their shoulders back and everything. It's almost like, I can't wait to see what these people create. So like, I wish I had that. And I tell them when I said, I was like, listen, it could be me, it could be someone else. When I start the class, I'm like, I'm so jealous of what I'm going to share with you. I wish I knew this then that I know now. So it fits perfect into that.
That's awesome. One last thing that I must ask, and for those who are listening and you can't see it, but I can, and if you're watching the YouTube channel, you'll be able to see Nelson Mandela is right behind Scott. And in this amazing, it's a picture, right? It's just a large picture. And so I just would love, a quick thing on why Nelson Mandela. It's an incredible picture.
Never had a chance to meet him. Saw him speak live when I was in Cape Town, South Africa. But what was amazing about, so I'll tell you how I got this poster first, and I'll tell you the amazing story about him is that there's a Nelson Mandela Foundation. And so I was at a conference speaking, but they had this whole expo attached to it. And the Nelson Mandela Foundation had a table there along with this poster hanging down from kind of like the rafters in this big convention hall. So on the last day, and people are like clearing up, is that I was visiting the table and I saw like this poster as they were clearing up still there. And I said, just out of curiosity, can I like buy one of those and everything? And they're like, well, we don't sell them, but if you want this, like if you can get it down, it's yours. So obviously I just got a couple people from the connecting hotel, paid them like $20 and they got it down, rolled it up. And I had a contractor kind of just mounted up there. But what I wanted to share is my wife and I had a chance to go to Cape Town, South Africa, but we also went to Robben Island where Nelson Mandela was in prison for 27 years. And so the gentleman who gave us a tour was actually in prison for a period of time that Nelson Mandela was as well. And so when he took us into this prison cell and he showed us how small it was, he's like, do you realize what happened to Nelson Mandela the day he was released from prison? I was like, well, I do know that there was like a big like brigade and so forth, but there was also a press conference. And he's like, yeah. And he's like, do you remember the first? I was like, no, I don't remember. So the first question that was asked of Madiba, as his people called him, was, Mr. Mandela, how did you ever survive 27 years in prison? With a great big smile on his face, he said, I wasn't surviving, I was preparing. Now, even just saying that to you, and as many times as I said that before, Jody, I get goosebumps saying that because even in his confinement, even with everything that he had taken away from him, there was still a movement that was going on. It was almost like taking a stone and throwing it to a still pond. The people that he was affecting, the things that were going on outside the prison, and yet he did not. He had his moments which we talked about, in which like, I don't know if I can do this and everything, but there was something much bigger that was driving him. And the rest is history, and it's still a movement. I wish we were much further down that road with regards to racial equality. And really bringing people together, but he's definitely created a huge movement and a pioneer. So one of my greatest heroes that will be behind me forever.
Another amazing, incredible story and just something that to share. And it touched me just hearing that. And I love that, he was preparing. Again, perspective. So important. Can't say it enough. I can't tell you. I could spend another 2 hours talking to you, Scott. I gotta tell you, there's so much. So you definitely have to come back again because
It'd be my pleasure.
And then we're interviewing Michael Reuter, who was previously from Seton, worked at Seton Hall and did this amazing leadership program that is continuing on, and his legacy is huge. And I can't wait for us to also do that interview together. That's going to be super exciting and launched in the same week as this interview.
Michael is one of the best when it comes to leaderships and mentors and coaches. And There's so much that we're going to learn from Michael. I'll tell you, and he's someone who is just who has touched my life deeply, and I do appreciate Jody asking me to be a part of that interview. So we're going to get the most out of him. Trust me.
Oh, I know we are. I know we are, and that's the new Inspire series. So when I put out 2 interviews in 1 week, that's a lot of inspiration. So I'm calling it the Inspire series. So thank you for being a part of that. You will only be the second co-host of that series. So thank you so much for that, Scott. I don't know what to say. I can't wait to have you back on because we can, and then have another, 2-hour chat because I love it. There's just so much information. I can't say enough for people to really follow Scott. You're on social media, I believe, as well, and take a look at the website, and please do yourself a favor, watch Ride the Wave. I promise you there are bits in there that all of us could take away something, a lesson from. So Scott, thanks again for your time. I so appreciated it.
Thank you, Jody. Thank you.
No problem. So I'm going to end as I said during the interview, but I will end the same way I always do. Today is the day. You cannot go back to yesterday, and you do not yet own tomorrow. What steps, whether they're small or large, are you going to take to get yourself that much closer to your end goal? Today is the day. Don't forget to live in the moment. Have a great day, everybody, and we'll see you again next week. Bye.